So this is where, in your account, zoning, the desire, which is basically the desire of public authorities to control who lives where, basically, what kind of things can go on there, what kind of things can't. And the first zoning push was to prevent laundromats popping up in your own neighborhood, which strikes the average person today as, well, why would you want to push out? It's right there. It's so convenient. I have one on the corner. Why would you want to do that? And of course, it was race. It was bound up with the fear of racial mixing.
It was, right? So Chinese immigrants have come to the U.S. They want the same things as everyone else. They want opportunities for themselves and for their families. But Californians were not too happy that they were there. And in Modesto, they try a variety of ways of getting rid of the Chinese. They try arson. They try burning them out. They try vigilante violence. They all put on hoods and go marching through Chinatown and smashing windows and beating them in the streets.
What period are we talking about here?
In the 1880s.
1880, as late as that.
Yeah, and it's not working. Other cities in California.
Sometimes I think it's worth. I mean, every now and again when I think we're living in a racist society, just to get some perspective, even on this country within the last 150 years, it was quite normal for there to be race riots everywhere all the time.
The extent of the violence against the Chinese in California in the 19th century is just astonishing.
Yeah, it is.
And they are passing laws at the state level that are overtly discriminatory. But we've already gone through the Civil War. There are new constitutional amendments, and the federal courts keep stepping in and saying, you can't do that. You can't pass a law that specifically targets the Chinese. And there is somebody in Modesto, a counselor, who drafts an ordinance that's going to solve this problem. Pretty much the only profession that the Chinese were allowed to pursue at that point is launderer. They're doing work that was gendered, right? That
railroad workers, weren't they? Also on the railroads, weren't they?
Yeah, they were on the railroads. They get kicked off the railroads. Okay. Laundry is pretty much all that's left at this point. And it was ceded to them because it was seen as women's work, and so white men wouldn't do it for the most part. And they jump at the opportunity. They're tremendously successful. But yeah, they're like Starbucks, right? Like you don't walk past 3 Starbucks to get to your favorite one. You don't walk past 4 Chinese laundress to get to your favorite, right? So they want to move into neighborhoods and be the local store so that, you drop your laundry at the corner, which means since they're living in these shops, that Chinese people are moving into white neighborhoods. And they draw an ordinance which says, it's very careful, you have to move west of the tracks and south of G Street. So I pulled an old map to sort of see where that was. And there's only one block on the old map that's west of the tracks and south of G Street, and it's labeled Chinatown. But they're very careful not to say this is targeting the Chinese. And there's a Chinese launderer who gets arrested and decides, sort of an early civil rights hero, says, I'll be the test case. And his case goes all the way up to the California Supreme Court, which sort of waves its hands and says, well, maybe it's for the welfare of the community. We'll allow it. And that's where you get zoning. It's the first time that a city says there are things that are totally fine to do in one part of the city, don't hurt anyone, but we're not going to let you do them in another part of the city.
So that's talking about activities like laundering, for example, which of course is a code for other things, but how did that sort of get extended so that it became a much more general zoning requirement for most of these cities, in which certain segments were then walled off for class reasons, essentially, which obviously overlapped with race, but class was essentially the motivator, right?
Yeah, so this jumps then to other cities. It jumps to New York, which is the first city to put in a comprehensive zoning code. Everything in the city will be zoned. And in New York, it happens because of Jewish garment workers. They are taking their lunch breaks down on Fifth Avenue, and they're looking in the department store windows so that they know what to sew in the afternoon. Also, they could use a little fresh air and light, right? We're talking about pretty horrific working conditions. And
so these things are on Fifth Avenue.
They're gaping in the big glass windows.
Right. But they are working in Fifth Avenue as well.
That's right. They're up on the 6th, 7th, 8th floor of the building.
Right. So they come down lunchtime, they're all hanging out, and then these lovely Brahmin women are walking by, and they're like, why is Fifth Avenue going to hell?
Yeah, and the merchants complain, you're scaring off our customers. Please stop this. They get the police to come and round them up for standing on the sidewalk and cart them away in police wagons.
So this is where the problem with loitering came about?
So they're accusing them of loitering, and it goes to, and ultimately, of course, it's a public sidewalk. You can't keep them off the sidewalk. And they hit on another solution. They say, what if we just didn't let you build those top floors of the building so there was no space for the factories on Fifth Avenue? We could restrict what you could do with the buildings here. And they float that past the city officials, who pretty much say, that's a little obvious. If we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it citywide. So it's not quite so obviously rich merchants telling us what to do.